How far into this relationship are you broaching medical decision making, power of attorney, things like that? I mean,
Early.
these are and are those difficult discussions in that they require sort of a cognitive acceptance, like I'm actually now putting medical decision making into someone's hands who are not my own, because in the future I'm going to lose the capacity to make those decisions. I mean, how difficult a discussion is that?
I think it really depends on the person, right? And how have they really truly managed all of those decisions by themselves, or they're used to some back and forth, or they have a different model that's quite intertwined. So for some people, that's really hard to imagine. I think in my experience, like in the neurologic illness space, so often if a patient has someone, which not all do, that person's coming to visits, right? Because they've been showing signs where they're not remembering, or, they couldn't get to the doctor's office on their own or get the Zoom up by themselves, et cetera. So they're often presenting with somebody else, and there's immediately another person to engage with their experience.
What are some questions you're going to ask that patient as their cognition is declining, and things that you need clarity on from them, their wishes? What do you want to understand?
Well, you brought up advanced directives and advanced care planning. And so let's just spend a moment on that. We should all, if you're 18 in this country, you should have an advanced directive.
And my guess is virtually nobody who's young and healthy has one.
That's true.
I mean, virtually anyone who's older and isn't healthy has one.
Exactly. I mean, we ask these questions in studies and also just casually. If you give a talk, say, how many people have an advanced directive? Maybe 20% of people raise their hand. How many people think an advanced directive is really important? Like most people raise their hand. So many of us are not doing the thing we know we're supposed to do. It's this deferrable thing like life insurance. Anyway, so one sort of public service announcement here is advanced directives are very important.
And you can download a form online.
Yes.
Like this is you don't need a lawyer to do this.
No, you do not need a lawyer to do this. So, and the most important thing to come out of an advanced directive, if you had to pick sort of one of the questions that gets asked, it's probably the proxy. If, God forbid, you all of a sudden in an accident or something happens and we can't ask you, Peter, what kind of care is important to you, who do you want speaking on your behalf in such a moment as that? And that's probably the most important question to get clear on.
And why would a young healthy person think about that? So my first advanced directive, I was in my late 20s when I actually finally did it, even though I've been in these conversations for a long time. And I one day was imagining, something unexpected happening, not being able to participate in a conversation, lying in a hospital bed. I was imagining my parents who do not speak to each other trying to make decisions over their child, and my, casual partner at the time, mostly casual partner at the time, kind of sitting there trying to figure out how they belonged in the scene. I was like, I don't want that for them. Regardless of what happens to me and my body, or, what they actually choose, like to actually put myself in the position of the people that those choices would default to.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want that for them. I didn't, if I was at all sentient, I definitely didn't want to hear it. But I didn't want them in throes of totally unexpected grief to be trying to negotiate that relationally. Right.
It's an awesome responsibility. I'm very honored to say the number of people that have asked me to be the decision maker for them. I can't imagine how many have asked you this, BJ, but I mean, there are more than a dozen friends who have asked me this. And I say the same thing to all of them, which is it's an honor to do it, but we have to sit and talk.
Yes.
Like it's not, you can't hand me that stick and just sign my name on there. Because we're going to have dinner. We're going to have a bottle of wine. Yeah. We are going to talk this through.
I need to know how to do this job.
I really need to understand what you want and don't want.
Yeah.
Good on you, because a lot of people don't do that. And again, the job is not for you to insert.
It's not my will. Yeah, exactly.
The job is for you to honor the other person's wishes, speak on their behalf. So to do that well, you have to know the person's wishes. And that's not a couple of questions. That's a big old conversation. And just as you do with the bottle of wine at dinner, like that's what we're doing with patients. You're setting a table that's comfortable. Often you're sitting, you're asking intimate questions. As providers, you may be sharing intimate details too, as part of a relational sort of set a table for, intimate things to happen. So I just want to borrow your table setting there. That's what we do too. It's an important piece of getting to this level of detail. So, and it's also true, like you don't have those conversations once. I want to, Bridget's saying a lot of really important things. I want to double click on another thing like that. The advance directive, the conceit is problematic right out of the chutes. You're asking someone to putting themselves in this future-oriented position where they're in a situation that they can't imagine, where they can't speak. And so what will they want then? So it's a problem. But it's as best as we have, but it's a problematic tool. And as people move through life with illness or disability, their realization of what they can or might like to live with shifts. We have data around this, right? You ask a bunch of healthcare providers, if you were brought in your own emergency department, quadriplegic from an accident, would you want your colleagues to save your life? Most providers say, hell no, I could never live like that. Go ask most people who live with quadriplegia if they're happy to be alive and say, yeah, I couldn't have imagined this. But, same with me. Hey, you're going to lop 3 limbs off. Are you cool with that? Like, no. But then, as it goes in this life, we are adaptive. We have capacities that we don't know until something comes along to pull them out of us. So part of this mind bender of an advance directive is to allow room for that, for a person's sense of themselves and their capacity to change in any direction. So all of that is a preamble to say you have these conversations over time, multiple times, and let the person change over time.
I think it's also like this is one of those places where you want to focus on the things that are important to you, the experiences that are central to good days, to meaningful time, because, having counseled a lot of people actually in the acute moments of having to make these decisions, being able to reorient them towards like, what I've heard you say is that your dad was like always in his garden. He wanted to be at home. Like if he could hear your voice, that's what was important to you, blah, blah, blah. Like the ventilator doesn't get us there. Right. That what are we moving towards is much more motivating than not doing X, Y, and Z, not intubating, not resuscitating, because those things for most people like exist from scenes from TV shows and are still pretty far away. But but it is easier for people to choose like the scene that we're going towards that they can square against how they knew their person. So there are people who are very clear about A, B, and C interventions being something that they would never want. And I certainly honor that. Maybe I hold it with a little bit of grain of salt, but I honor it. But I'm more interested in when I have been asked to be in that role to understand, what makes this person's life, not because it's going to perfectly translate, like, if I can't dance under the full moon in Bali, like my life is not enough. And you're like, okay, but what if you could like see the full moon from your bed? Like, is that, like we adjust.
That's a really important point, Bridget. I've never thought of it that way. I probably have just always had a bias towards, okay, what are the things we don't want to do? What are the things we don't want to do, right? We talk, like think about medical lingo, DNR, DNI, no chest pounding, no intubation, blah, 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 blah. But I like this framing better of, okay, like what are the minimum set of requirements you need to have to be really, to still hold some delight in life? And, what do we need to get you there? Those are the steps we'll take.
There's some language around that, Peter, but there's a movement to change DNR to AND, allow natural death, to get away from the things we're not doing and the things that we are doing, just to make that point in it.
Interesting. Has that taken hold yet?
I don't know that it's taken hold, but there is an effort to try.
I like that.
Me too. And I think goes to your point. It's if we have a sense of what we're moving towards, even if we have to be very flexible and allow our mind to change en route, that's just a much more viable. It's much more. It's a much more deliberate path, and it's also very helpful for those around us to know what to do versus just not to do.
I'm Peter Attia. This podcast relies exclusively on premium subscribers for support, which allows us to provide all our content without taking a single penny from advertisers. I believe this keeps my content honest, making it a trusted resource for listeners like you. As a premium member, you'll get immediate access to our entire back catalog of AMA episodes and all future AMA episodes. You'll get longevity-focused premium articles packed with actionable insights. You'll get unrivaled show notes for each and every episode of The Drive, every topic, every study, every resource from each episode carefully curated for you. You'll get quarterly podcast summaries where you'll learn my biggest personal takeaways from the previous 90 days of expert guest episodes and much more. This journey doesn't have to be navigated alone. We can take these steps towards a better, longer life together. Become a premium member today at peterattiamd.com/subscribe to join me in a shared commitment to a healthier future.